Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Do you want to do some welding? Okay, well here is the finished product all welded up. So this is the budget cast 2JZ eBay manifold, and it was adapted to a Vortec 4200. So this did end up taking a little bit of work. It wasn't as straightforward, I guess, as you would expect, but I was able to make it work. So I guess in this video I can do just kind of a recap of the project, and then for the guys that like the welding shots, I'll show some of the welding stuff time-lapse at the end. And if you're new here, this is all happening in a 1983 Volvo wagon. It has a VS Racing 7875 turbo, and it's a 2007 Vortec 4200 out of an Envoy. That's the project. If you like it, make sure you like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff, and then we'll get to the video. So for starters, this is the factory 4200 manifold, and it actually comes out and up over the top of the engine, and that's not going to work. It's pretty ugly. Wanted to do something different. Here is a spare engine that I have, and you can see that the intake actually comes up over the top of the valve cover, and it's really tall already. So one big reason is to save space, and the other one is it just looks a lot better. So there are other ways that you can do this. I've seen it done with using like a 4-inch piece of pipe and an elbow and some flat sections, but I wanted to do it a little bit different than what I've seen before because those have already been done. So decided to try to use the budget cast 2JZ manifold from eBay. It's $155, and the goal was to just adapt runners and make that work. I had some challenges with it in the beginning because the runner dimension is a lot more compressed than the 4200 pattern. So I decided to scrap that whole idea and just build a whole new section that I would weld into the cast plenum. So making the flange, I just used some frog tape to mask off the area of the intake flange, and then I cut it out and traced it onto a 3-inch by 1/2-inch piece of aluminum that I bought on eBay for like $28. 28 plus 26 shipping. And then I bought a piece of 2-inch aluminum locally from a place called Speedy Metals and went to go pick that up, and that was about $28 or $30 also. So once I had the flange shape masked off, I cut that out with the bandsaw, and I actually just use a hole saw to cut the holes out, and then I use a radial file on the drill press to smooth out the holes. So once I had the shape of the flange done, I was able to mock up how I wanted the plenum to sit, and then I ended up making some 3.5-inch spacers to kind of hold it out where I needed to hold it. And then I ended up cutting open the bottom of the plenum and using a 4-inch piece of flat aluminum as a filler piece. So once I had the 4-inch wide flat piece that was going to go on the bottom of the plenum, I traced out where the holes would need to be and then mocked it up so 4 of the runners were going to go in straight, and then the front and the rear runner would angle in a little bit to try to make it a little bit easier to build. So I ended up cutting all 4 of the middle runners at about 4 inches and pressing one end of it so it would fit into the holes in the flange. I also wanted to have velocity stacks on the inside of the intake, so I ended up using a large chunk of aluminum that I had laying around and cut it up and put it on the lathe, and I ended up making a press die that I could cut a 1.6-inch section of the 2-inch aluminum tubing and then press it out on the press, and velocity stack would come out. So I ended up welding the velocity stacks to the inside of the flat plate that was going into the intake, and then welding the tubes onto the back side of that. The front and the rear tubes ended up welding the velocity stacks right to those, and then placing them into the intake and fitting it up and then tacking them all into place that way. So overall, the project took me, I'd say, a little over a week to do, kind of in my spare time. I can't really say if it was a bigger or smaller job than I expected. I knew it was going to be a lot of work, and it was going to take a little bit of time and effort to get it done. So once I had everything kind of mocked up in place, I was able to go through and fully weld the whole thing. I ended up using 5356 filler for the whole project, and I bolted it to a spare head that I have from a different engine so I could prevent the flange from warping. So I ended up going and picking up that spare engine. It was a bat engine that I got as a core for $20, and I just wanted to use the head, so me and my son pulled the head off of it, and it ended up working perfectly because I was able to balance it up on my table to weld it and kind of shimmy the thing around, and it was a little heavy moving it around, but the end result ended up being pretty good. There's a little bit of deviation, but not really what I would consider warped, and I'll definitely be able to bolt it down straight, so that worked out pretty good. So I'll leave you guys off with the welding. Let me know what you think of the project, and you guys have a nice day.